Storytime with Dave Booker. Appreciate you coming back. Today we're going to continue on with Sheriff in a Small Town, Chapter 19, Robbery. So let's begin. Rocky was seated behind the desk and Talbot was pottering around the office. After the hustle of taking on the bank's case, they were taking it easy a little while they could. The morning cruise around town was astonishing in its solitude. It seemed like most of the town was taking the day off. A few shops were open and the diner was doing brisk business, but the streets were still. Morgan came in and had brought papers for them detailing their exploits. The Countess was one Rocky hadn't met yet. Their byline stated that they were not on staff but had sent the column in. Morgan read a few pages and dropped the paper on his lap. Looking around, he grinned. "You fellas are doing a great job. Town's feeling more like it used to." Rocky leaned back and poured another coffee. He handed cups to Talbot and Morgan. Seated comfortably, they talked for a while. "You did this job a long time. Was there any case that defeated you?" Morgan drank his coffee and was lost in thought for a while. "You know, Rocky, a man doesn't like to talk about his failures, but I guess between us three, I don't mind. Tell you what, I'll tell you about the case, and you tell me why we never caught the thief." Talbot and Rocky listened with interest as Morgan spun his tale. "Well, it was an early case when I had only been on the job about 5 years. Town was smaller then, and I didn't have the funds to hire a deputy yet. A few of the locals helped when things needed a little extra power, but this was before they built the big jail, and the 2 cells here were all we had. It was because of some big things that happened not long after this case that they started construction on the big jail. Joshua Littlejohn was running the general store then. He came in all flustered and embarrassed, saying he'd been robbed. I asked all the usual questions, and when I asked him for a description, he turned a beet red and stammered out that he couldn't describe the face." Talbot chuckled. "Let me guess, he was wearing a neckerchief over their face." Morgan shook his head. "No, the face wasn't covered at all, but Joshua couldn't describe them." "Hiding by the gun," Rocky suggested. Morgan shook his head. "Nah, it was just a little Derringer pistol. Just enough, maybe, enough of a threat to get them to hand over the money. Soon after, Mark Wallace from the bank came in and said they'd been robbed. Asked for a description, and they couldn't say what the robber looked like either." Morgan grinned at the perplexed looks on the sheriff and deputy's faces. In the same day, 4 other shops were robbed. Not one man amongst them could identify the robber, much less describe them. It seemed ridiculous to me until I finally asked what they could describe. Well, once I heard their answer, I finally understood the reason." He drank the last of his coffee and leaned back in his chair. "Now, you gentlemen are pretty shrewd. Can you tell me why they couldn't describe the robber's features, even though he was masked?" Rocky and Talbot huddled together, trying to work out the problem. Talbot spoke first. "Maybe the janitor was more of a threat than you thought." Morgan shook his head. "No." Another consultation, and Rocky tried next. They had long hair covering most of their face." Morgan cocked a brow. "From what I can remember, some did mention long hair, but it wasn't covering their face." Wide collar turned up? "Yeah, coat, yes, and open, but the face." Rocky and Talbot gave up. "Here's the reason that nobody could give a description of the face. The robber wore a camel hair coat. It was open when they walked in. She was female and totally nude underneath that coat. I never did find out who she was. She made the rounds that afternoon. Only then did she disappear." They all laughed and decided that it was time to put in a little work. Morgan rose, stretched, and headed out to meet Agnes for lunch at the diner. Talbot put on his cap and gun, balanced the circuit of town while Rocky went through the paperwork and notices for the week. Talbot reached the fishing lake and was about to head back when his attention was stuck. He exited the car and sat down on a stump. He watched the duck carefully. Something wasn't right, but he couldn't make out what. The duck was swimming around, but aimlessly. Another odd thing was that the duck's mouth was partly open. Didn't make any sound, but never shut his beak. Watching his thing struck him. The duck's water trail was bigger than it should have been. Rocky had a rowboat hidden, and Talbot knew just where it was. He pushed into the water. Rowing slowly, he approached the duck. Oddly, the duck didn't alter its course as his approach. Gliding alongside, he saw the duck moving slightly, but the webbed feet remained motionless. Well, it could be a decoy, but he'd never known one to move before. Looking around, there wasn't one in sight. He reached down and plucked the duck out of the water. Thought he saw something momentarily attached to the bottom that sank. The water in front of him erupted, and in this ray he spied a mermaid. Well, not quite a mermaid, but the female was wearing fins. She awkwardly clambered into the rowboat. Removing the mouthpiece and goggles, he looked at his wife, coughing and spluttering. Attached to the mouthpiece was a long rubber tube that had been attached to the duck. Once she caught her breath, she swatted him for pulling off the duck that allowed her to breathe. As Talbot rowed back to shore, Michaela opened up a bag strapped to her side. In it was her collection she had gathered from the bottom of the lake. He could see coins, possibly some jewelry, a small camera, keys, and a large object he didn't recognize. He helped Michaela gather her gear. Where'd you get this stuff? From Agnes. She uses it a lot and let me borrow it. She's got a collection of stuff she's pulled from here too. We're trying to find a big magnet and see what else we can find from inside the boat. The water gets cold most mornings. Talbot shook his head in wonderment. Agnes is becoming a bad influence on you. She crossed her arms and her lips pouted. Now, she's my best friend and she's adventurous just like me. Hell, you're just like all men. You just want me to be a homebody, there to do your laundry and keep you fed. I know you know that I'm like this, but you turn a blind eye at my other side. It's as if you don't acknowledge it, it isn't real. You'd be a darn sight happier if you'd share the things I like too. Talbot had never heard her speak so heated. Okay, honey, let's start doing things you like this together. Guess I just never gave it much thought, but you might be onto something. Having your own interest gives you a chance to teach me. She kissed him and grinned. Or, for a while, I can be the expert in what you struggle like I do when you know something I don't. She pulled a bag from the bushes and slipped her dress over her bathing suit. Placing the fins and snorkel apparatus into the bag, she kissed Talbot again, declined a ride home, and strolled off down the path. In the courthouse, Talbot called home and asked if he could bring Agnes and Rocky over for dinner. He held the phone away from his ear as a delighted shout came clearly over the wire. I guess you both are welcome. He placed the earpiece on his ear and checked on the time to get together. We're expected after we shut down here about 1800. Rocky picked up the phone and Mr. Talbot placed the handset on the rest. Hey Agnes, we've been invited to the Talbots for dinner. Any objection? Another ear blasting shout was his answer. Agnes must have hurriedly hung up the phone because the click was loud. I figure she'll do herself up and drop over here so we can all go together. Sure enough, Agnes arrived within an hour and dressed up for visiting. Talbot jokingly berated her for corrupting his wife. Agnes put her head on one side and grinned. It's mutual. She's showing me a whole bunch of things I've never tried, and I'm teaching her things I've done that she's never tried. Agnes thought about all the things he discovered about Agnes since their marriage. It seemed there were always new things she was interested in. He'd never known of her interest in scuba diving or snorkeling. He'd done some snorkeling through necessity in the military, but he had never done it just for fun. He asked Agnes to teach him how and to show him some of the treasures she'd found. She was eager to introduce him to another of her many hobbies. Excuse me, I gotta get something to drink. That's not in the book, that's me. Oh, much better. At Talbot's house, everyone assisted in getting the finishing touches completed to dinner. Agnes and Rocky set the table while Talbot and Michaela finished the dinner rolls, which had just finished raising. On a side table were all of Michaela's finds that she had cleaned as best she could. She'd do the extreme cleaning later, but as it was, she had a fine collection. Rocky asked permission to look over some. It was a blob of metal that interested him. Carefully scraping a little of the sand and mud and whatever else was encompassing it, he saw the gleam of rounded metal and a small amount of sheen like pearl. A cold chill ran down his spine. He was pretty sure where Michaela had found a small pistol. It could be a Derringer. Maybe more importantly, it could be the Derringer. He asked if he could do a good cleaning until the meal was ready. Talbot's curiosity piqued at Rocky's interest. Rocky was working the handle in and saw a small diamond plaque uncovered. He laughed and tossed it back on the table. Talbot saw the same thing, but didn't understand Rocky's sudden loss of interest. Rocky picked it back up and showed Talbot some small markings. It's a Derringer, all right, a 1960 Halco Derringer. Talbot was starting to get excited, and Rocky explained that it was a cap gun. Over dinner, they discussed the movies arriving at the Picture Palace. I saw they were showing 3 new ones. We're actually getting them on a first-run trial. Michaela reached for the paper. There's The Name of the Rose, Short Circuit, and Howard the Duck. Talbot frowned. Rather an odd mix, and I don't think I want to see a movie about a duck. Must be for the kids. Name of the Rose sounds romantic. What do you say we go see that? Michaela looked up in surprise. They hadn't been to the pictures in a long time. Can we go to dinner like when we first met too? Reading for the rest of the evening, Michaela was practically bouncing in her excitement. Rocky figured he'd check on how Talbot liked it, and if it was a good one, he'd take Agnes. The evening finished off with a game of Michigan Rummy, and all too soon it was time to break up. Thanks for the invite. Next one's at our place. How do you folks feel about duck? Since neither Talbot nor Michaela had ever had duck, it was decided that another selection would be on hand just in case. On the drive home, Agnes leant on Rocky's arm. Stopping at the lake, they spent an hour watching the moonrise. Back home, Rocky had to go to bed early, and as it was late and he had to get up early as it was his turn to get breakfast. He had something special in mind. Agnes stayed up and pulled her own finds from the lake. Spread out on the table, she poured over her treasures. An odd selection of keys, fishing weights, coins, and a wooden box that had been wrapped in cellophane. In it was a beautiful small gun. The pearl handle glowed, and the barrel was so clean it looked like it had never been fired. She also had a few rings that were her recent acquisitions. Cleaning them, they would wait for tomorrow. It had been a long day, and it was time to get to bed as well. Okay, today's was a short one, so we'll do the next one, which is called Bonnie and Clyde. Yeah, we'll do that one tomorrow, or the next time we do a reading. Voice is going, man. I hate that. So that's it for today. Now, I'm going to tell you something that I explained on the last video, chapter 18, and I'm not going to do it on this one because I'm already telling you about it. But every now and then, I will put one of these videos at the end, a little blurb that says, send me an email to my time is, was, will be Gmail account if you see that I'm telling you to do that. So if you see that, that means that the first person to send me an email saying that, hey, got your message, here's my information, and then I'll send you a copy of Sheriff in a Small Town. The new and approved version, it's 286 pages, 80,000 words, so it's a nice deal. And you get it for free, so I'll be patient in handling. So that's it for today. Appreciate you stopping by. Hope to see you again real soon. So take it easy. Be good, and be good but to yourself. Bye.